Good evening, everyone. This is Pranav Gupta, the founder and the director of Frontlist Media. Frontlist is encyclopedia, the guide, the profile, and the library. We believe in the power of the ecosystem. If you are a creator, publisher, seller, provider, or reader of the published world, this is the must destination for you to know the world around you. It brings the newsworthy from the world of publishing to its reader, covering an array of topics from book businesses to book passion to industry and statistics. We shed light from the already hyped to behind the scenes. In the ever-evolving world of chatter, opinions, and conversations, we let you visit all the facets of the fact. The Spotlight is a talk show on Frontlist, featuring the industry leaders and decision makers. It gives people from different streams a platform to put their opinions across hundreds of thousands of people. For the month of November 2021, our theme is Freedom to Publish. Freedom to publish is a fundamental subset of freedom of expression and is a prerequisite for thriving publishing industry, which itself is an essential part of a democratic society and a basis for a knowledge economy. Freedom of the media is the fundamental right of various forms of media, whether it include the print, radio, television, and online media, to operate freely in society without government control, restriction, or censorship. Allow me to welcome two very eminent and globally well-accepted speakers, and I'll introduce to them Giulia Maragoni, Buona Sereta. Giulia works at the International Affairs Department of the Italian Publishers Association, where she follows the association activities related to the European and international context. Giulia served on the Freedom to Publish Committee of the International Publishers Association for 5 years, starting from 2016 to 2021. She is also the member of the IPA Educational Publishers Forum, EPF, and its steering committee. She is currently in charge of ALDERSUP, the European Network of Book Fairs, coordinated by AIE, aimed at promoting the internationalization of book sector and developing a series of studies in the field of translation needs and reading habits in Europe. Welcome, Giulia, to the Frontlist Media on the Spotlight session.
Hello, Pranav. Thank you for having me today.
Allow me to introduce Mr. Kristin Aronson. Good evening, Kristin.
Good evening.
Kristin Aronson is a Norwegian publisher and chair to Freedom to Publish Committee at International Publishers Association, chairman at Norges Television, and a very senior consultant in the Norwegian publishing and media industry. He graduated in economics and held many senior level roles in different organizations in the Norwegian publishing industry. In 2012, he also became the managing director of the Norwegian Publishers Association. I welcome you, Kristin, to the Spotlight session of the Frontlist Media.
Thank you, Bernard.
So I'll start straight away with the questions we have for you, to both of you. And my first question to you is, Kristin, freedom to publish, disinformation, hate speech, are they related? How do you define freedom to publish? Over to you, Kristin.
Yes, I think one of the key questions we have today is how to deal with hate speech. Again, you know, can we obtain an inclusive public debate without starting to censoring voices? You ask a question about it, and I must say I don't really think that nobody has the best answer yet. What it is obvious is that we have to try to better the way we discuss and get informed on the internet. And I think actually that the freedom of expression and the freedom to publish is vital to keep public discourse open and vibrant. And also I think that publishers have a key role in fighting disinformation and conspiracy theories. And actually when you ask for the definition of freedom to publish, in my world, that is the situation where the publishers can be allowed to publish all that they deem worthy of publication. And as a matter of fact, even, and perhaps especially, if what they publish challenges the boundaries established by the society they operate in.
Thank you, Kristen. So, Julia, can I have your opinion on this?
Okay, yes, well, if I can start from the end, I would start from my definition of freedom to publish, and I would like to recall a quote that is very popular and that was attributed to Voltaire, that is, I disapprove what you say, but I will defend to death your right to say it. And I think that from this quote, we can really understand that freedom to publish consists in defending the right of everyone to express their opinion. In case of publishers, in particular, is the right to work in complete freedom without the risk to be persecuted, censored, assaulted, or imprisoned. Thinking about disinformation, there are many links with the freedom to publish. On one side, it is clear that disinformation flourishes in absence of freedom to publish. That is also absence of freedom of information and freedom of research. So the work that publishers do to ensure quality information is essential, and this can be done only when they can work in freedom. On the other side, I think that it's interesting to notice that this information can be also used as an excuse by regime in order to limit freedom to publish. For example, to censor some critical voices by accusing them of spreading false information. We heard about many cases during the COVID where the government tried to reduce the free circulation of information with anti-fake news provisions that were an instrument to limit free journalism and critical reporting. And coming to hate speeches can be also a way to limit and reduce freedom to publish, and also lead persons to self-censorship in the end. Just to bring you an example, very recent, I spoke with some authors a few weeks ago, and we were talking about the way that they are using the social media to promote themselves and the books, and it was striking that they also experience the problem of hate speeches, because when they are online, they can face attack because they address controversial, political, or sensitive, in any case, sensitive topics. So it is a very complicated and sensitive issue for sure.
Thank you. So my next question goes to you. Does freedom to publish have different meanings in the physical versus virtual world? Kristen, you can start with this.
Yes, well, generally speaking, I think the answer is no. Then it is the same challenges and the same possibilities when it comes to freedom to publish, but obviously the challenges are more complicated and more difficult when it comes to the online world. And I mean, we've been in this digital age for almost 25 years, haven't we? But we still haven't really found a way to tackle this, and this is a key important question. And I can just say that as we just, some of us been involved in launching something called the World Expression Forum that starts next year, and I must say that of the 5 topics we are looking at for that Congress, this is certainly one of the topics to understand all the challenges in the virtual world.
Julia, your thoughts on this?
Yes, I agree with Kristen, because in the end, when there are limitations to freedom to publish, either in the online or in the offline world, the objective is always the same, and it is to silence critical voices, to reduce freedom of expression of individuals or groups. So what is different is that in the digital world we assist new ways, new form of censorship or self-censorship that are enabled by the features of the digital environment. One example that we already addressed is the increasing problem of hate speeches and fake news, and that are somehow boosted by the anonymity and the false identities that can be used in the network, and for sure require a new form of collaboration between all the players involved. And another aspect that could be interesting looking at the digital environment is the risk that is connected to the fact that some actors that are in a very dominant position in the digital market, and so they can act as gatekeepers in the field of distributing and selling books, for instance. Their behavior can have an impact on freedom to publish, because if they decide to exclude some titles from their digital shelf, then this is an immediate impact on the circulation of the book and could cause a sort of censorship issue. So this is an interesting aspect that is directly linked to the need of a healthy competition in the digital market.
So that's quite an interesting insight you brought in. So Kristen, so what are your thoughts on the censorship debate around social media platform, and what would be the right balance for it?
Yeah, I think Julia was really hitting the point here now. Yes, one of the great questions is, what do the gatekeepers do? And the risk is they are working in two ways. One is the official one, where we can sort of see that Twitter decides to kick Trump out, and we can discuss, is that a good or a bad thing? But also on the other side, behind the scenes, without us seeing it, using the algorithms in different ways, they are editing what we have access to. And this is very complicated, and we know that there's a lot of discussions around the world now if the law should be changed, and if one has to regulate this in one way or another. But the problem is, like Julia is saying, if you start regulating even in the best sort of meaning, you start with something that you think will help freedom of expression, you might end up curbing it instead. I think the answer is to be very principled on this question. I think it's a necessity to regulate in one way or another, but you really have to be transparent, open, and have the freedom of expression in mind if you want to do regulations. But there is a lot of discussion, as I said, around the world, well, both Julia and I are from Europe, and at the moment there's a lot of discussion in EU, European Union, on what should be done in this matter, and there is an act discussing that will be coming, and I think it is important that if there are limitations introduced, we have to understand what happens, and we must see that they are not trying to curb the freedom of expression and the freedom to publish.
Julia, would you like to add something to this?
Yes, I think that when we talk about censorship and social media, we have to do in any case a necessary premises, a premise that is that at least I can speak for myself and my association. We are in principle against any form of censorship because freedom to publish is not negotiable, and ideas should be fought with other ideas. So this is a guiding principle that should be applied both online and offline. However, then when we look at a phenomenon like hate speeches, speeches inciting to violence, racism, the problem of fake news, we need to tackle these phenomena that are very, very sensitive. So where is the balance? Maybe the balance stays in the concept of responsibility. That is a concept that as publishers we know very well. When the publishers do their job, they act as a corrector, as an intermediator between the authors and the readers and their audience. So they have a responsibility on their job, on what they do. So the point is whether the social platform also has a responsibility. And I think that in any case, whatever is the answer to this question, it is very important that they should be engaged with all the parties involved and collaborate in order to fight against the dissemination of harmful content.
Great. Quite an interesting one. And here in India also, there's a lot of debate going around, especially with regards to the social media, fixing their accountability, and about the censorship and regulating stuff. So different regions and governments are trying to make control over it, and it all depends upon the different governments have their different set of agenda how they put forward. Great. So I'll go to the next question. Kristen, it's for you. Do you believe in absolute freedom to publish? And are there any boundary conditions to it?
Yes, in principle, I think that there is an absolute freedom to publish. That's my general statement. Then I know that you have to have some kind of regulation even on freedom of expression. And I can just talk from where I'm sitting. I'm in a country that is quite often ranked either on top or very high on the freedom of expression indexes from different organizations. But even in my country, there are some regulations on the freedom of expression. And in general terms, it's quite easy to know and understand it. It's all about the real hate speech, which means that you cannot express whatever you want about persons or minority groups or in that way insulting people. And this has to be very clear. So that you both can understand the yes and no's, and it also must be within the framework of freedom of expression and freedom to publish. So I don't think a society can be without any regulations at all, but they must be clear, and they must be only to protect those who need protection. I think that's the key. And then obviously you have to transfer that into law in each country. But again, I don't think it's possible to have total freedom, because what is that? That means that you get a very high degree of self-censorship. And as Julia was saying, even if you have this regulated, it is still through the social media much increased pressures on publishers, authors, booksellers, librarians, and it really, I think that's one of the most important things we do when we work in the Freedom to Publish Committee, is to help our members and others to stand against all the pressure that they get. Because as we were saying, if you are a publisher and you think this is a work that is deemed to be published, you should publish it, and you might get a lot of pressure, but you just have to do it. So my conclusion is that as a publisher, you always have to make choices. You always have to make decisions on the work, but you really should try to do those decisions and conclusions only based on what you think is right to be published, and not be afraid of the self-censorship, not have to be afraid of governments trying to, or the authorities trying to stop what you think is deemed to be published.
Great. Julia, your thoughts on this?
Rather than an absolute, for sure, I would say that freedom to publish is a universal right. And as a universal right, is not negotiable nowhere. It is not something that depends on where you are born. Shouldn't be something that depends on the country where you live. And so, what about the boundaries? The boundaries stays in the implementation of this universal right that is implemented in different social, political, and cultural systems, and the way in which they're implemented and regulated at national level can make a huge difference. And my position is the position of a person living in a democratic country, and so in Italy, and my experience, of course, can be more different from the experience of someone who lives in a country where there are laws that set a restriction to civil rights, like to freedom of association, freedom of expression, and so in the end, the issue stay in the implementation of the freedom to publish in the different political system. And in the end, it is not a case that we know that in the history, authoritarian regime has always been scared about books and the power that books can have to free people's minds, and they try to burn, destroy, and to censor them in any way, in any possible way.
Great. So, Kristen, how hard is to establish freedom to publish and the stability of the state and harmony among its population at the same time?
Yeah, quite a lot of authoritarian regimes think that the freedom to publish will unstable the situation in the country and make it difficult for the population. That's quite often the way they think. I obviously think it's the other way around, and I'll talk a little bit about that. It's interesting because I'm getting back to the World Expression Forum that we will start next year. One of the topics again that we want to examine a little bit more, and I think it's been clearer in the pandemic we've been through, the COVID-19 crisis, and that is how dependent a society is on creating a trust in a society. A trust between the inhabitants and between the inhabitants and the authorities. And there at least is a thesis saying that if you want to build trust in a society, you need to have freedom of expression and freedom to publish as a prerequisite. You need to have the possibility to have the ideas come flowing into society. You have to have the possibility of discussing and debating and trying to learn from each other. And I think, it's worth looking at, as I said, how important is trust in society, and then again, how important is freedom of expression and freedom to publish as a prerequisite for the trust. My thesis is clear. There's a clear line from freedom of expression to freedom to publish, to trust, to a better society. That's my belief. But it's going to be interesting to see if we can do some research on this, and we really want to look into if that is possible. I think that's an exciting idea. It would probably be a project of a couple of years to do it, but I think the COVID-19 crisis really put sort of the spotlight on the situation.
Quite an interesting one insight from you, and we look forward for the research what you're doing. So, Julia, your thoughts on this?
Yes, so of course, freedom to publish should be in synergy and not in any way in opposition with the stability of a social and political system. I think that to achieve this, there is a process, and this is a quite complex process. Part of it probably starts from the efforts in the literacy and education of the younger generation, because you need a stronger background to ensure the stability of fundamental freedoms in a society. Some actions that are linked to these are the support to freedom in education, that is to ensure the possibility that the educational market is free, where publishers can provide the educational content freely, and so the quality is the quality to emerge, and there is a freedom for teachers to choose the best educational offer. So it is something that starts in education. Then it is something that that is developed also through the fight against censorship, and censorship is a very big issue also in education. For instance, where there are books that are challenges in school libraries, in the education process. So you need to start from the youngest generation, and then to foster the participation of all the citizens to the public debate, into the public life, and promote the development of an open market where there is a free circulation of content, information, and ideas. Then once you have this background, I think that there will be for sure harmony with the rest of the political system.
Great.
If I may, Pranav, I think this is very important, Julia, to mention the role that publishers have in producing the learning materials, and how important that is to keep the freedom of expression highlights. Thank you.
Great. So I'll come to the next question. So, Kristen, there have been some authors assassinated for their controversial writings or a fatwa issued against them. What, as an organization as IPA and the other publishing bodies around the globe, have worked for the protection of their life?
Well, this is a very, very difficult question, and you might not only say authors, but also publishers. We have examples of publishers who both have been assassinated and killed. I think that one of the most important things we do is international cooperation. First of all, we have to try to see that this doesn't happen, obviously the international interest in what happens might help protecting authors and publishers. Might also be the other way. I mean, obviously, the fatwa, for instance, that is generally communicated, it might even make it worse. But I think our job, if we get back to the Freedom of Publish Committee, is that we feel that we have to try to keep the international cooperation going. When things like this happen, we spotlight it again.